So I wanted to know if that works. So this graph shows you the Navamsha occupied by the 10th Lord in the athlete's charts. And there's a bit of a spike in Taurus, and Cancer is lower and a little bit higher in Virgo and Sagittarius. It was not, I was a little disappointed. This was not working as much as I thought. I would expect something stronger in Mars signs. And then I thought maybe rather than the 10th Lord, there could be other indications, and I did some exploring. And then finally, I came across Saturn's positions in the Navamsha elements. And this gives much better results. And remember, this morning in the Brigo class, we learned that Saturn is the significator for profession. So this is a nice result from all the work that went into this. I think this is a clear indication that Saturn is definitely significant as a significator for profession. What is also nice about this is that the indications are consistent amongst themselves. When you look at the two signs ruled by Venus, you see that both of these are low. And the two signs ruled by Mars are both high. So the differentiation of the various signs is clearly based on the dispositor of the sign more than their modality. So this kind of a clear result, this is kind of unique within all the data I'm showing, that the principle is very clearly and directly indicated. Now, why the rule of the 10th Lord wouldn't work so well, I don't know. Possibly if the data is broken up in some different way, maybe in part of the data, maybe it's the variation of the various professions that kind of mixed up the indicators. So that is something to be pursued further. Another thing I attempted was to look at the elements in the Navamsha. Rather than taking 12 different signs, I was looking for a smaller number of groups. So there would be more data for each group. So each group would be more significant statistically. So for Mars, we find that more athletes are found in Mars with fire signs and earth signs, and fewer in air and water. So that's reasonable.
Slightly strange also.
Slightly strange.
Air element is the water element.
Why should it be a good place? Is this in the Navamsha?
Yes, these are the elements found of Mars in the Navamsha. So fire Navamshas and earth Navamshas are more common than air and water. For Saturn, the pattern is different and more significant. For this many data points, I think this cannot be ignored. Research with Saturn is very tricky because it moves very slow. But when you look at Navamshas, the duration of Saturn's travel through one Navamsha is much shorter. So even if the data is from a particular era, it gets nicely mixed up among the 9 Navamshas, the 12 Navamsha signs, because of that division. So this is very significant. And then for Venus, the pattern is somewhat different. Venus is found mostly in earth signs.
Can you quickly go to the prior slide? So Saturn is fire and water, right? Good prominence.
Right.
So this is Pitta. And
Yes.
Saturn is a Vata.
Yes. Yes. Good point.
You know?
Yes, Pitta is actually liquid, even though usually we just think of fire. But Pitta has a liquid nature. So the fire and the water put together would create that liquid nature.
So basically, it's just some kind of Pitta element in the Saturn Navamsha element in this category of people.
Yes, and Saturn is the hard work. So where do you put your hard work? Where do you put your labor? Obviously, athletes have to train. It is not when they run the race that they do their job. It's when they train for the race, or they train for the swim, or the high jump. And that means every day getting up 6 in the morning, having your eggs and bacon or whatever. And then doing this tedious routine So no surprise that Saturn is a major significator here. And an air sign would make that Saturn very Vata, because it's already an indicator of Vata. And then Earth would probably bring out the lazy part in Saturn. So you need the fire and the water to bring out the Pitta.
Yeah. So basically, this shows there's more Pitta. There's more Pitta present. No, there's more Pitta present. Now in the runners, the African Americans have 10% less long than Caucasians. They have longer legs, shorter chest, and the African Americans will be tend to, beat the Caucasians in running, so that they have more kind of Vata element than the Pitta.
Because they have longer legs, they're
No,
more
in my observation, they have more Vata.
It doesn't describe their Prakriti in general. It's to the kind of work that they put a lot of labor. So you have to be careful.
Since we're talking about
Right. If I would do this for Lagna Lords, and then we saw this pattern again, then it would be about that. So the same way Venus is indicating things that you love in life. So the earth element is more predominant here. So the physicality of sports, you could say, that would explain that. This we already saw. All right. So Drakanas. So these are simply the Drakanas signs that Mars is found in. So this is not specific to the Drakanas ascendant, it's purely sign placements. So Mars in Scorpio in its own sign, fixed, is a strong indicator. And then Mars in Virgo Dracana is the weakest indicator. So this is a nice repetition of what we saw earlier, placements in Virgo. And if you go by the natural zodiac, you could take Virgo as the 6th house and then Scorpio as the 8th house. And then you get some exact same patterns as we saw earlier. These are Rahu's sign in Dracana. Rahu is very strongly found in Aries. So Rahu indicates our desires and where we have a lot of passion. And Aries is the first sign, and it's about the head first. In some of these races, it's literally the size of the head that makes a difference. So the indication of being the first, and then Libra for balance. A lot of sports are about balance, different types of balance. And Rahu is a very intelligent planet, and it's very smoke and mirrors. Think of soccer, of dodging a ball and doing tricks and agility. So that all makes sense. And this being in Dracana signs would mean that for this particular divisional chart, these qualities are important. And Dracana is not associated with sports in a specific form, but it's the 3rd house, and 3rd house is arms, and a lot of sports involve arms, and it is the house of courage. So I think there are natural, there's a natural affinity between sports and the 3rd house, just by coincidence. These are the Drakanas occupied by Venus. And now we do find Venus in Scorpio to be favorable. So you have to be very discriminative. The position in the Vamsha, the position in Drakana is not the same thing. You cannot just say divisional charts are more subtle Varga, so they're all signs, and the sign here or the sign there is all the same thing. It's really all very specific to what the divisional chart is for. And this kind of an analysis clearly shows that. So Gemini and Scorpio come out strong. So within that context, Venus being debilitated in Pisces is the weakest. So apparently you need enough strength in the Dracana to support the aspect of harmony in this field of competition. I didn't get further into explanations of why those particular signs. So, again, in summary, analysis of large quantities of charts supports the role of many special combinations. Positive factors for athletes is Saturn in Mars Navamshas, Saturn in Aquarius Navamsha, and Moon in Sagittarius Navamsha, Mars in Scorpio Drakana, Mercury in Aquarius Drakana, Venus in Mars Drakana, and Rahu in Aries Drakana. So these are, this could end up in the recipe book for predicting athletes. Negative, Mars in Virgo, Saturn in Venus Navamshas, Venus in Mars Navamshas, and Rahu in watery Navamshas, and Mars in Gemini and Pisces. So this is all directly extracted from those places where you have very strong results. So after Vinay's lecture, I was really curious how the Ujjata Yuddha.
What is it? Udyata Yuddha.
Ujjata Yuddha.
Udyata, which is necessary for athletes.
So this is a qualification of Drakanas, and Drakanas that have this qualification, they're more aggressive, and we expected those to be more prominent in athletes. Now, there are 36 Drakanas, and 20 of them have this. So there's a natural bias towards having these. And the graphs represent that very closely. The only two planets that did below the expected average of that natural distribution are Mars and Sun. So Mars and Sun actually have a lower than expected number of placements in these Drakanas. So I think that the approach of simply looking at planets in these types of Drakanas is not the way it is to be used. There has to be something else, like a specific lordship. There has to be something else that brings that quality of that particular type of Drakana to make it effective for athletes. Because this is not enough significance to really draw conclusions. I didn't show the numbers, or these graphs don't show the actual counts, but I extracted these actual numbers and I calculated the ratios, and they're all around 1.2, and the chances of having one is 1.25. So the ratio of the 20 versus the 36. These are the rising signs in the Drakana charts of athletes. For the natal chart, we saw the distribution that was dependent on the latitude. When you get into the Drakana, you no longer see that. And yet there's another kind of a pattern. It's almost like it got split in two. So Cancer being very common, and then Capricorn, the Saturn signs basically. And then Scorpio pretty high.
That would give us a kind of insight, or even if I do not have that database, let's assume I just take on a multiple 200 charts and I say find the common factors in that. Yes, so the common factors could be the lordship or the house placements, right. So that then I can validate it with what the Rishi has written or what somebody has presented somewhere.
Yes, there are various themes around that. One theme is to take a yoga look it up into all of the data, and then see how many of the people who have this are athletes and what kind of athletes, or are writers, or are politicians. So you get a profile.
Yeah.
And then compare the profile to the natural distribution of those in the database.
Yeah.
So you say, well, this combination has 10% more politicians than expected, but 20% more athletes, and 40% less scientists. And then you really get a feeling for what a yoga does.
Yeah.
And that would be very strongly proving or disproving what it does.
Yeah. Also,
Because maybe in the old days, being a watchmaker meant you need to be good with very small parts. Maybe now it means you need to be very good with 3D CAD software. You know, the significance of some of these indications can change, and this kind of research could show how it has shifted and actually match with modern professions.
Yeah. Like for example, if I run database on astrologers' horoscope, okay. Now there are several yogas for astrologers, even in Jatak Tattva and Jyotish and all that. I did it over, like even with using combinations, 5th and 8th lord combinations, or Rahu aspecting the 2nd house or 2nd lord. You know, and I ran it over like top 20 astrologers in the world, Indian astrology, in Vedic, doing Vedic astrology. So I got some common points. But if a software can do it, it will save me hours of, giving me those, either I put in the combination or the software tells me what's the common factor in these 20 charts.
There's already a feature in Parashara Light where you can select the yoga and search for all the people who have the yoga.
Okay.
The thing that is missing is the complete Astro data bank is not yet hooked up.
Yeah.
But that will be done soon enough. So
Sure.
we're very close to
Okay.
having a functionality in place.
Okay. Yes.
So this is a Gemini Lagna in the Drakana, and the placement of the Lagna node. So this is the same as what we did earlier in the birth chart, but now looking at the entire chart in the Drakana. So we're getting some nice patterns here. So Mercury in Gemini in the 1st house is really powerful, and then it gradually declines to Mercury in Scorpio in the 6th house, and then it gradually goes up to Mercury in Aquarius in the 9th house. So the 1st and the 9th lord placements for Gemini ascendants is really strong. And Mercury in Scorpio in the 6th house is particularly weak. So when you see a pattern like this, where it is kind of a straight line, you would usually expect that this is associated with something being in proximity of something. It's sort of a gradual process. For example, we know that Mercury is strong in the 1st house, and directional strength would weak in the 7th house. So that's the kind of a principle that would give that kind of a pattern. So I'm just putting it out as a type of thinking you can employ to seeing patterns like that. Or it could be that there's simply that these two signs are simply very auspicious, Gemini and Cancer, and that those are average, and Libra and Scorpio are not so good. Maybe Mercury and Libra would be more of a creative profession, and yes. So again, this type of data needs to be analyzed, and you really have to think through every position and look at the natural significators of these houses and what could explain this. The fact that the Drakana does respond to contrast, the fact that this is not all like average in the middle, it shows that the Drakana is significant. And the contrast is really nice. Aries, Sun and Aries in the 9th house is very low, and then Sun and Taurus is almost triple. So this is for Leo Lagna. So a Sun ascendant, and then that Sun in the fire sign in the 9th house, you picture that kind of person, more into law, into administrative positions, probably not wanting to be pumping iron all day long. Wouldn't be appropriate. Virgo, Lagna, and the Drakana. So Virgo, Lagna, and Mercury's places in the 12th houses. Scorpio in the 3rd house is the lowest, and then in Taurus in the 9th house. So the 9th house keeps coming back. So the element of fortune, having fortune in this area seems to be important. For Libra ascendant, Venus is really weak in Aquarius in the 5th house. To me, again, that is a place that would be more academic and more philosophical in nature. So you can get all these slides and go through this more detailed analysis. This is Scorpio ascendant, Mars in Virgo. And I just wanted to show you how that is made easy in the software and get a feeling for how I use it and some of the tricks available to you.
This is all 9, right?
Yes. So most laptops these days have a nice pixel resolution. So when Parashara Light first came out, screens were typically 800 by 600 pixels. And a lot of the software design was based on the minimum size screen people had. So 3 by 3 charts was pushing it. Our time has moved on, and a lot of people have gotten used to small screens. So I've witnessed a shift from people insisting to not have things so small to that's perfectly fine, and we just want to see a lot of information on the screen. So from looking at people's laptops, I see that a lot of people like this layout of 5 columns by 3 rows. So that's what I'm showing here. So this is the kind of a layout that you can put together. And in this version of the software, you can be completely, you can design this entirely the way you want it. You can size anything. You can place pictures and backgrounds and put beautiful graphics in between. You could design a page for printing, for example, where you have a standard layout proportion to the page of the book, and with illustrations and tables all stretched just in the right way.
What size is that?
The size of this? Oh, well, it is a 2 by 2 cell. Yes.
2 by 2. 2 by 2. 3, 4, 5. 5 by 3.
Now the worksheet is 5 columns by 3 rows. This particular chart in the left upper corner is 2 by 2. Did I misunderstand you?
No, no, it's
Okay. So I want to show something that I use just all the time, and that I think a lot of people don't know. When you analyze dashas, say you want to know about this sun dasha, you're going to talk to the client about this particular date, and you're going to analyze the sun in the chart and the relationship between the dasha and antadasha. But then you want to know where the sun will be at that time, or where the slow-moving planets are. So in this worksheet, I created a transit chart in the right upper corner. And now when I right-click on the dasha period, I can select Update Animated Transits. And it will instantly show the transits for that date, for that dasha.
That's where you go.
I